Hey guys, it's J Belle with Girl Talk with J Belle. We're doing a special edition of Girl Talk with J Belle, the podcast. Juneteenth is coming up this week so fast, and it's going to be a huge celebration for everybody because of the trying times. And I have a very special guest. When this opportunity came across my email, I had to jump on it. We got a virtual panel coming up this week called I Am Black with Angel Livas, because she is the livest in the room. How are you doing?
I am well. Thank you so much for having me, J Belle.
Thank you for being a part of this. Now, I know that you have been on the run, promoting this, getting all this done. How has it been so far?
It's been great. I think that the subject matter is so important, and I think that it's gained a level of traction because people recognize that these are important conversations that we need to have. And it doesn't hurt that I have a phenomenal all-male panel that wraps up the event. So it's been good.
I saw it. You have, let me look at this one more time. I definitely saw one person that I recognize for sure. Michael Eric Dyson is on here. Yeah. A lot of the other people, I'm not going to lie, I don't recognize them, but this looks like a great panel. And I do see you have a woman on here too. So, you know, a woman's perspective.
That's me. Well, you're talking, okay, so here's the thing. So the event is essentially a two-part special. The first part is a documentary, a mini doc. So it's about an hour long, and it kind of tells the story of what it's like to be a Black man in America. And so most of the work that I've done for the majority of my life has centered around women, like literally. Like I have a nonprofit called The Woman Behind the Business, and men would always say, Angel, like, can you do something for men? Can you do something similar for what you're doing for women, for men? Mm-hmm. And so the difference in this story is that I have two young boys. And so this was that opportunity that I felt it made sense for me to focus this conversation on men. So it's no love lost to all my amazing women out there. And I do recognize that this subject matter is not just, it doesn't just pertain to men, but for me in this particular story, that is why that, has been the focus. The second part of the conversation is the panel conversation, which does feature Michael Eric Dyson. It also has Reverend Dr. Howard John Wesley. He's the senior pastor of Alfred Street Baptist Church, which is a very progressive church based in Alexandria, Virginia, doing some phenomenal things, a lot of give back to the African-American community, just an amazing community of people of God to be able to celebrate with and all of that wonderful things. And then we also have the chairman of 100 Black Men, Tommy Dortch, who is another phenomenal individual who is on the panel and able to give us a nice perspective as he represents thousands of men throughout the world. Not just here in the U.S., but in other countries where they have chapters. And then, of course, there's me, who will be moderating that final conversation to kind of move us forward and come up with, like, what are our objectives? How are we going to take action and move forward as a country?
Wow. Yeah, that is very powerful and right on time. And I was going to definitely ask you about the aspect of doing it, talking about all Black men, because I'm pretty sure you're following on Twitter and pop culture right now, the amount of Black women deaths that are happening and Black men deaths. But a lot of us women are like trying to figure out, why aren't our Black men protecting us? Mm-hmm. And so it's funny that you bring up that you've done a lot of work with women and men have been asking you to do more stuff for them, because in these times, men are feeling like we're not doing enough for them, or we're not, behind them 100%. And so I kind of want to get your thoughts on, what do you feel about that? And then I want to talk more about your background that brought you to this point. Because I know you just mentioned you have two young boys. And so that's your main focus when it comes to this panel. So let's start off with, how are you feeling about when you hear stuff like that coming from a lot of our men, like it's just going back and forth between our community saying these things, and we're both trying to help each other, but in different ways.
I think that, like, for what I was saying, I think it's more as a whole. I do a lot of work for women in business, women in government contracting, and men, like, I don't, not to say they're not invited,
Right.
but it's definitely tailored towards women. And so with that focus, it's always been, Angel, do something for the men, do something for the men.
Mhm.
And what you're saying, I do feel like at the end of the day, we're all Black, and it boils down to us being Black. It doesn't boil down to it being a Black man or a Black woman, in my opinion. So if we're being killed, I don't think that they're looking and saying, oh, I'm going to kill this Black woman, or I'm going to kill this Black man. At the end of the day, what they see is Blackness. They see the color of your skin, and that is what's initiating these injustices. And so, and I might be wrong, because I mean, you know, it may be a different perspective, but to me, I think that this is a part of the problem. Why are we creating a barrier? Why are we creating a reason why we're trying to, you know, put one against the other? Who cares? Let's just unite and make this where we're not being killed. At the end of the day, to me, that should be our common denominator. Not saying, oh, well, I don't feel supported, or let's just look at this picture as a whole and figure out, how do we unite and stand together?
I agree with you with that. I definitely agree with you on that. It's sad because just seeing that between people. So I really wanted to get your perspective on it, especially with your upcoming panel with the doc. And so let's talk a little bit about your background.
Wait, sorry, can I just say one thing?
Yes.
I will say, I've had some people try to come for me.
Oh.
Because it is, no, not you, but I'm just saying, like, they've tried to come for me because it's an all-male panel. But I'm like, well, I'm not chopped liver. I'm a part of the panel too, even though I'm just moderating the conversation. So that should count for something.
Right.
And again, like I said, at the end of the day, if this particular panel, if that's the focus, I've never said that I'm not going to do another panel that features high-profile women. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying this one, my reasoning for moving forward and focusing on this stems from my children.
Totally understandable, because you're raising future generations, and your legacy a part of this, and you need them to see strong Black men in the perspective of what's going on right now, so that they have answers, because a lot of them have experienced this even back from Martin Luther King, civil rights mm-hmm. era up until now. I mean, it's always a constant cycle going on. So I totally understand it. People are always going to come for you because they just don't get it.
They gotta have something to say.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, you have to just kind of just keep doing you. So, like I said, let's go into your background a little bit. What got you into producing? Because it's rare, you know, seeing so many Black women producers these days, but it's growing every day. So let's talk a little bit about your story.
Okay, sure. I don't really know where you want me to start, but let's see. I've been working in media for 20 years now. And so I have done everything from work at NBC to Bloomberg Television, working in radio. I've worked definitely the most in radio. And so my background in producing that's what I went to school for. Like, went to Howard University. Shout out to all my HU fam. So graduated magna cum laude from Howard with a degree in broadcast journalism, went on to get my master's in interactive journalism / public affairs from American University. Then I also have a mini MBA in social media marketing. So, like, all things related to journalism and storytelling, like that, those are my passions. And so, you know, like I said, like, I've been in this industry for a very long time. But I would say it was 5 years ago that I branched out on my own and started doing and building my own entities.
Wow.
She look at J-Belle, you so silly.
That's an awesome resume. When you run it down like that, let me tell you something. You're a humble brag. You've done everything that most women are, like, struggling to do right now, especially in these times where so many are getting laid off. And especially when it comes to color, Black women and Black men are the first ones to kind of get let go. I mean, let's just be honest about that. So let me ask you this. What was your experience as a Black woman in those different arenas, NBC, Bloomberg, you know, because it's rare when you see our faces, but when you do, you know we're there.
So very interesting. Like, I mean, I will be honest, like I had very good experiences for the most part.
Okay.
I loved working at Bloomberg. I was a segment producer for their show, Money in Politics. So I was covering stories on the Hill. I loved being a field reporter. So all of those gave me great experience. I would say NBC was great. I think they were more disappointed in me because after I got the job, I wasn't there very long. I ended up taking another opportunity. But and I, like I said, like I know they were disappointed in me, and I actually felt really bad that like I got the job and I was really excited and then I left. But the thing about the media industry is that it's so small. Like, and you have to do right by people because you're going to see them again. You're going to end up working with them in some capacity, or they're going to be your boss or something, right? So I just definitely encourage, if you are out there and you may have gotten let go, still, you know, keep good ties with people because you don't know how things are going to convert when this is all said and done. Now, my challenge happened at my last place of employment, where my boss was an older white woman, and she definitely, it became a point in time in our relationship where she, I would say, had difficulties managing me as a young Black girl, because at the time I was in my early 20s, and she had children my age. And when her children ran into difficulties, or when her children got, you know, lost their jobs or were being irresponsible, I felt like it was being taken out on me. Like, how dare this little Black girl have this amazing job and my child can't get a job? And so there was a lot of, I'm gonna say retaliation, or because I can't think of a better word, but it was essentially like based off of what was happening in her personal life, it would be slammed against me. And the number one thing that would happen was she would tear my writing up. Like she would, I mean, she just made it seem like I was just like the worst writer, like, you know, what's wrong with you? Like, this is horrible, like just X it all up. And it was funny because at the time it was like, really? Like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, I just graduated magna cum laude. Like, how can I be like that horrible of a writer, right? And I remember it sparked me to apply for grad school because I'm like, okay, well, if this is true, like, I want to get better. Like, I don't want this to be a hindrance. And it's funny. It's so funny because I was so worried. And I asked her to write me a letter of recommendation. And she said, well, your writing isn't good enough to get you into grad school. And I was like, okay, this sounds like hating going on right now. And so because I didn't want it to mess with me, right, I started going to some of the other producers. And at the time I was the youngest. I was by far the youngest Black girl in our entire department. And so I went to some of the senior producers and I would say, hey, can you read over this? Let me know what you think. And they were like, well, this is good. There were even some instances where I say, hey, can you write this? I just want to test something. And she would do the same thing to their work. And so it got to the point where I was just like, okay, clearly this is like an attack against Angel. I'm not going to take this personal anymore. Eventually she ended up getting fired, not because of me, but because of what somebody else did to her. It was a good setup. But, you know, it was a lot of lessons in that experience. That's not why I left. Actually, after she got fired, I ended up replacing her in her job. That's how I became like the executive producer and the director of the department. So again, I do believe in push through. I do believe in knowing who you are and making sure that you're owning your truth and not allowing anybody, no matter what they say, to really change your psyche or to break your spirit. And I think that just stems from like knowing who you are and owning it and walking in it. And even if that means you have to put a smile on your face and still show up and whatever. It's funny because I just listened to Maya Angelou. She had a poem that she had did in partnership with another gentleman called The Mask. And I think that as Black people, we wear this mask all the time. We're used to putting on a show to make sure we don't make anybody else uncomfortable. We are oftentimes put in a predicament where we can't always be ourselves. You know, you walk into a place and it's almost like a performance. Like, this is how I have to act to be accepted in here. This is how I have to behave to ensure that I'm not too Black, or to ensure that, you know, I don't speak too loudly, or I'm not too opinionated, because I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers to make them uncomfortable with who I am, because you're threatened by me. And so, yeah, like that was that journey. And it was when I had my second son that I found out that they were doing a reshift in our department. And essentially I didn't have a job to come back to. And it was a lot of prayer. It was a lot of definitely spiritual guidance for me to figure out, like, okay, well, what am I doing? How am I going to move through this? And at first it was, okay, I'm going to go get a job, you know, in media. And everywhere that I went, everyone was like, baby, you can do our job plus the owner of the company's job. You're too intimidating. I was like, really? Like, why? Or it was, you were making more money than the senior people. Like, and I was just like, there's no way that God brought me this far for me to go backwards doing what I've done and knowing what I know and what I know how to do for somebody else and not to be paid my worth. And because of that, I was just like, I'd rather just build my own brand. And I will say, like, for anybody who is starting a business or is in the infancy stages, don't be intimidated by these large brands. You have to know and believe that what you're building and why you're creating it, that it is serving a purpose and that the world needs it. They need to hear your voice. They need to see your craft. They need to be empowered by what only you can do, because there's no other you. And so, yeah, I just encourage people, like, not to worry, because I've always had these major brands behind me. And when you think about the rooms I was able to navigate in, the things I was able to do, a lot of times it's because this brand was in the equation. But I challenge you to think about, well, how long did that brand stay in the equation? It wasn't just that the brand that you represented, but it was your work. It was how you interacted with that brand. It was how you showed up for that brand to make sure that the job got done. So, yeah.
Just gave a whole sermon. I mean,
I'm sorry.
That was needed. I mean, because even for myself, like I told you before we actually got started, that I'm in the infancy stages of my own production company. And it's weird because I just got a text from my best friend this morning, because I was talking to her about my, my whole situation here in Phoenix, and just, trying to get on my 2 feet. And it's a little bit of a struggle here, especially now that we're in the middle of COVID, which I was going to ask you about next. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, maybe you should think about a job in corporate America, doing media communications, because then maybe, your financials will be better. You'll still be able to do radio, that sort of thing. And I'm just like, right now, first of all, you texted me before 10 a.m. So I'm not about to answer. And two, I'm like, technically I'm already in corporate America. It's just not the same corporate America that you think it is. And so that type of thinking, I know she means well, but that type of thinking, it frightens me, because I'm like, I've been on this journey for like 10 years trying to get to my main long-term goal. And so for you to say that, talking about the brands, the big brands behind us, and putting out there that sometimes they don't last a long time. So you kind of have to be, brave enough to jump and build your own, and that's going to take time. So in that, how is your patience in building your own? Because you said for the past 5 years, that's what you've been doing. So how has your patience, your faith been in that whole process?
Oh, honey child, let me tell you. It definitely takes faith. It definitely takes strong faith, and it definitely takes tapping into your inner being and being able to say, if you're a spiritual person, then you believe that your life has already been mapped out for you, right? Because that's what we're told, that God knew who you were before you were.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So if that's facts, then where I'm supposed to end up is already predestined. It's already built inside of me. I just have to tap into it and call it out. I need to own it enough and believe in it enough that that is where I will be walking, that I'm walking in that purpose. My journey has been definitely interesting. At the time when I first started this journey, I was married. Like I said, I had just had my second son, and I made great money. I made very good money, and I saved a lot of money while I was working in corporate America. And so from that, it gave me the support and the cushion that I needed to experiment probably my first 2 years in figuring out, like, okay, what I'm going to do, what's going to be my specialty. I had that flexibility, as well as the support of another financial situation in my household. There was another income, right? But entrepreneurship, are you in a relationship?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. Entrepreneurship is not only hard on you if you're going through it, but imagine being the breadwinner, then up and deciding, hey, I'm about to start this venture. Mm-hmm. And the person that you're tied to, they're not quite sure what in the world has gotten into you. You've gone rogue, and they don't even understand who you are at this point, right? So now you're trying to operate in your purpose and move forward. And this goes back to what you were saying earlier by what people are saying to you. And that goes into your support system. And I have a book called Side Hustle to Main Hustle that helps women transition into full-time entrepreneurship. And one of the things that I talk about is the importance of having a village. Your village are those individuals that are around you that are able to pour into you and to help you grow, to help you make it to that next level, to remain sustainable. And if you think about it like this, we're always told it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
I believe that it takes a village to raise a successful person, because you're leaning on their shoulders. You're tapping into them to be able to give you what you need. And so knowing, okay, well, if this person doesn't get my vision, it may not be worth sharing certain things with that person. And it's no foul, no hard feelings against that person, but it's just understanding what you need to feed you to keep you motivated. Because if you have your mother coming at you like, baby, well, you need to get a real job. I don't know what you're out in these streets doing. You can't keep doing yada, yada, yada. Then you got your friends telling you, girl, you can't never do nothing because you always on this quote unquote business that don't nobody see no rewards from. Then you got a man over here like, baby, I just want to spend some time with you, but you too busy. Like,
yeah.
And so you're constantly like, I'm failing everybody, and I'm not even seeing the rewards of anything that I'm doing. So now you're sitting there and you're stuck. You're sitting there and you're like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I believe this is what I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm not quite sure because everything around me is telling me it's not. So how do you pivot? How do you work through those nuances? And so that is where I believe it stems from your why. Like, why are you even doing it? Because at some point, the why is the only thing that's going to carry you. That is the only thing that is going to help you push through. So when you look at your why, and I always tell people, like, I truly believe that every person, whether you work in corporate America or whether you have a business, your business has a vision statement and a mission statement that you work for or that you own. You also need to have a personal vision or mission statement. Why is this important? your personal vision statement or your personal mission statement, it keeps you in alignment with your why. It keeps you in alignment with your purpose. So if I'm working for a company and I realize, like, I don't believe in the assignments that I'm being tasked to do. Let's say you work at a network or a news station. They're having me do these things and these stories, and they're not allowing me to tell the whole truth. They're only allowing me to tell this one thing to scare people, but yet you do it, yet that's not in alignment with why you're in that job. Should you be there still? There should be something that nudges you to say, this is a red flag, this is not in alignment with what I'm supposed to be doing. And so, like, I just think that it's that faith and understanding and taking the time to map out your vision statement, your why, and your sorry. Your vision statement, your mission statement, and your why.
Wow. And you speaking right on time with that. Because all of that is happening in my life right now. This is why we call it girl talk, because you got to be relatable with the conversations and what's happening. And so everything that you're saying is like right on. Right on. So let's talk about your event a little bit more. I Am Black is happening this Friday on Juneteenth, which is huge in these times. Whew. Yes. Your idea, your aesthetic, you said you have 2 young sons that kind of brought this idea to you. If you don't mind me asking, how old are your sons?
I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Oh yeah, they're babies. Oh.
Yeah.
So they definitely got to see it. So, you said for the first part there is a documentary behind this. Let's talk about the documentary a little bit, and then we'll go into the panel and like what people should expect when they are joining in and seeing this panel.
Yeah, so the mini documentary for I Am Black is all around the stories of Black men and the things that they have dealt with. One of the things that is really sad, actually, and part of the reason why I'm doing this is a number of them, their first negative interactions with the police started when they were around 8 to 10 years old. Whether it was they were outside playing with some friends and they lived in a neighborhood that were predominantly white, and the police may have been driving by and pulled them aside and said, hey, you kids live in this neighborhood, and just solely pull the Black kids and let the other kids continue to play. And so when I hear that, and to think of my own, it's so important that I can go out and I can protest, but then I'm not tapping into my gift by just going to protest. By creating a storyline that not only I understand as a mother, but to really spark the conversation to help other cultures understand this is the difference. So everybody can be very clear. So nobody can say they didn't understand. This is the difference between how Black people are treated versus other cultures. And so I often give the example of like when you're getting pulled over by the police. I think just about everybody on this planet, if you are of driving age, you've been pulled over at some point. And just your personal interactions or your personal experience with the police, you understand what that is. I don't know one Black person, not one, that doesn't have some type of process or something that goes on in their psyche when they see the police and they hear roo, roo, roo in their back, right? Whether that's turn your music down, let me figure out who I'm about to call so somebody can be on this phone and listening to what's happening. Or it's like some of the guys are like, they clench up, they clam up, they get tense, they become anxious. They don't know, they're running through their mind like, I may have gone out last week, who was in my car? It's literally all types of thoughts that you start running through your mind because you want to be absolutely certain that you make it out of that pullover, that you don't do anything wrong. And so raising awareness to just how that simple thing as being pulled over triggered something for Black people. And you mentioned, yes, the event happens on Juneteenth. And this year is the 155th anniversary of Juneteenth, which is the emancipation of slavery. And if we want to take it way back, police were originally formed as slave patrols, right? Their job, their sole responsibility was to capture slaves. And by any means necessary, beat them, whatever they needed to do, threaten them, and got them back to their masters. Well, if we look at 155 years later, the way that some police officers, not all, but some police officers, their mentality of, and I mean this in the most respectful way, some people, they all of a sudden get some balls when they have a badge and they think that they can talk to people any kind of way that they want to. Mm-hmm. And that's not right. And so the first part is kind of to tell that story so that people who have reached out to me have said, Angel, I want to stand in solidarity with Black people. I want them to know that we support what you guys have going on, and we don't believe in these racial discriminations. And that's great. But then they turn and they say, but we don't quite understand completely what the Black experience really means. We don't quite understand the difference between us being at work together and somebody losing their life from a police officer. Like, where's that variable in between? And so the goal of this is to kind of show these varying stories that are not from thugs, that are not from, you know, like what people say, oh, well, this only happens to people who are thuggish. No, boo-boo. Sorry, Cupcake. That's not true.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not true. So let's show the conversation and have a real conversation. If we're going to have it, if Angel's going to put on a conversation, we're going to have a real conversation. So that is what the first part of the documentary, what people can expect.
Great. I definitely understand it. Now, if people want to log in, tag in, how do we do this? I don't want to give any wrong information, so I'm going to let you give it all.
All you do is go to iamblack.org. On the website at the very top, you click live stream. There you'll be able to access the program. It'll take you right to the page. You don't have to do anything else from there for the rest of the 2-hour event. If you go ahead of time, you can also go to the RSVP link, which is right beside the live stream. And there you can get, you can set reminders where you'll get alerts. Hey, don't forget, in an hour, this event is going to be taking place. So yeah, we tried to make it as easy as possible. And the website again is iamblack.org.
Well, thank you so much, Angel, the livest in the room. I'm going to start calling you that because I love it. I love it. Yeah, guys, make sure you tune in. Starting at 8 p.m. Is that across?
Nope.
Okay.
It starts at 7 p.m. The mini doc, the premiere of the I Am Black mini doc starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The panel conversation with our amazing panelists, that starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
All right, so we got the right times. And let me ask you one last question.
Yes.
Why Juneteenth? Besides the fact that it's the 150th celebration of it, but why did you pick that particular day?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to give this a short answer. This is actually okay. So this project literally came to me about 2 weeks ago. Yeah. This is not something that I've been planning for months. This is not something that literally 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. I host a weekly prayer breakfast, and after the prayer breakfast, one of the artists was talking about an experience he had with police, and God just laid it on my heart, placed it, and it was just like nonstop ever since. So literally everything has manifested to where we are today after 2 weeks. And so this also goes to show kind of what we were talking about earlier. When you are operating your purpose and God is in it, anything is possible. And so when I was looking at the calendar, I honestly, when I thought about it, well, when God said this was about to happen, I was thinking, oh, well, I can do this for like Father's Day. And I was like, oh, it's like I'll have like a whole, like almost 4 weeks. I was like, oh yeah, I can crank this out. Honey, I looked at the calendar and Juneteenth jumped out. And I was like, really? Like, I said, well, let me Google it. Let me make sure this is like, and then when it said like, you know, and I knew what Juneteenth was, but I was like, let me just make sure.
Right.
And talked about the emancipation of slavery. And then I did the calculations and I was like, yo, that's 155 years ago. Yet look at where we still are. It was a natural fit. It was a natural, like, why wouldn't I do it on this date? Yes, it put me in a tight time constraint. But with that, you know, I think that greatness brews when you're willing to step up to the plate and do hard things that other people aren't willing to do. That's where greatness is formed. So it was, I want to provide something to the people that is educational, that can help us evolve, and that will definitely enlighten us so that we can truly stand in agreement and build these United States that we so-called have been living in.
Again. You're like, I'm sick of you. I'm joking. Thank you so much, Angel, once again. Yeah, right on time. I'm going to make sure I'm tuned in. I don't know how I'm going to do it because I'll be working, but I'll make sure that I'm tuned in somehow, and I need to see this. Everybody else needs to see this. Again, Angel, thank you so much for your time and your efforts. This is something that you don't want to miss. I mean, a Black woman putting together a doc and a panel within 2 weeks. Whew, that is a lot of work. Okay.
I come out.
But you did it. So make sure you tune in, guys. I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do in my next episode because I don't know what I'm gonna do to top this one. This was awesome. I love it. All right. Until next time, guys. Enjoy your week, your Juneteenth, and let's get this fight and keep it going. All right.